Hi, this is my review of Relics of the Lost. As you can see, with my other old school PDFs, I decided to print this one. Relics of the Lost is basically a selection of weapons, armor, gear of all sorts, and relics that bring a lot into your Stars Without Number RPG, but they are quite easy to be converted or integrated into any other science fiction RPG, particularly the old school ones because of the simplicity of the stats. However, they also provide a lot of inspiration if you're playing modern science fiction games. This is also going to be a good source of inspiration and a source of new items for your players to use in their adventures and to find, of course. Well, let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The quality is just great. It's in black and white. It's well organized, very clear, very well explained, and you have some simple illustrations here and there that I will be showing you as I review this book. For example, we have this one. They're just very simple illustrations that give you a bit of the flavor of the relics that you will find here. There aren't really any negative things when it comes to the quality. Everything is just great. Now let's talk about the contents. As I was telling you, this is basically designed to be used with stars without numbers. Stars without number. But it's also very easy to use them with any other science fiction game, such as Metamorphosis Alpha, perhaps even Traveler. It's quite easy, and it's completely compatible with any other of the Kevin Crawford old school games, such as Other Dust. It's a perfect fit for Other Dust because Other Dust is a science fiction game of post-apocalyptic adventures. And you could also use it with Silent Legions, because that's very Lovecraftian. Maybe you could use these relics as sort of weapons that perhaps the Amigo or some other horrors brought from beyond space and time. And well, you get some tips on how to use these weapons and armor, how to stock them, stock your ruins with them, how to place them in different rooms and without being too excessive, because some of these items are quite powerful. And you also have information on how to buy and sell these things, because these objects are quite unique. They usually fetch a really high price, so you'll probably be able to buy them or sell them in the black market. Even some organizations could be after these relics and may actually be chasing your party or your group, trying to take the relics away from them. So there's a lot of potential for adventure seeds right there. Now let's talk about the weapons a bit. The weapons are quite extraordinary. They feel quite science fantasy in the way that they pretty much bend every known rule. Although there is some scientific background behind each weapon. So for example, we have this powerful sword, the Dimensional Blade. It's basically a sword that faces out and back into reality, so it can cut through walls without damaging a surface. It could cut through armor, so it's a blade that you can use to reach things that are behind obstacles or enemies behind cover. And it has like 30 meters of range, so it's quite handy if you want to create a sort of like a melee based character in a science fiction game. With this sword, it's going to be quite possible without the risks of getting shot from every direction. And you also have some other things. So for example, you have the Automatic Matter Forge, which is basically a weapon that uses any sort of matter to create ammunition. You have this, maybe it's a sort of like a machine gun or whatever, and you start loading any piece of anything that you can find, and it's going to turn it through some extraordinary process into ammunition. So that's very handy to have. You also have an assortment of grenades and bombs, a micro anti-vehicle laser, phase disruption lens, the Revenant knife. I also like the Revenant knife a lot because it's basically a knife that once you plunge it into a corpse or your enemy, maybe you kill your enemy and you leave the dagger in place, that enemy or that corpse is going to rise as sort of like a zombie, and as long as the dagger remains in place, that corpse is going to be at your service. But however, you need to recharge the dagger after 24 hours. Still, it's very handy. So you have a lot of weapons, seeker drone launcher, sinkhole charge, all with their own unique traits and background. When it comes to armor, the titles are also quite self-explanatory. You have aquatic operations armor. Oh, this one's really cool. This is the Masquerade Shell. And the Masquerade Shell basically allows you to transform your entire body into any other creature or humanoids. Or for example, maybe you want to disguise as sort of like a spider alien of sorts. It's possible to do that because this extraordinary shell is going to give you some of the abilities. If you want to disguise yourself as some of like an alien that can fly, that has wings, this shell is going to recreate those wings and you will be able to fly. So it's very powerful. You also have some other types of armor. For example, you have the Penitence Bulwark. This is basically an armor that causes you a lot of pain, so much so that you will get penalties when you try to attack, but it gives you a very high factor of regeneration. You also have the Roach Harness, which basically allows you to turn into sort of like a cockroach, not aesthetically, but in the functional aspect. You will be able to climb ceilings and walls. You have many different types of armor. And you also have tables that have to do with weapon improvements and flaws. So for example, maybe you want to make a few rolls to see what kind of improvement a particular weapon has. And oh, that weapon has long range, or maybe that weapon has penetrating ammunition, etc. Or there are also flaws. Maybe you find a weapon that is actually fragile, or it runs hot. It may actually damage you as you fire away, things like that. Now, you also have some steams, some substances that you can use to enhance your body in different ways. Some are riskier than others. Some may actually require you to suffer some sort of penalty, short-term, long-term, depending on the steam. So it's a bit risky, and they have names according to their function. So for example, you have the Bathory, which is basically a steam that makes you younger. You also have the Mirror Ball, which is this steam improves the user's powers of attentiveness, allowing for an inhuman degree of focus on an intricate or complex task. So this is going to be very useful for skill checks. You have others such as Panopticon, Filtre, Sanctum, Salamander. Salamander has to do with regenerating parts of your body. There's quite a collection of them here, and some of them are of higher quality than others. So if you just because you found the same type of steam twice, maybe one substance is actually better than the other. Now, there's a very cool section here, which is the commercial goods and tools, or the lights of a former age. As I was telling you, these relics and weapons have to do with, are quite powerful and quite extraordinary measured with the current technology level of Stars Without Number. And this is because most of them were created before the Scream, which is basically a catastrophe that shattered the entire galactic civilization of Stars Without Number. So these things feel like lost technology, perhaps even impossible to recreate. And in the goods and tools section, you have some very interesting things such as Force Umbrella or Devil's Advocate. Now, Force Umbrella is an umbrella made out of force energy, and the Devil's Advocate is a sort of like a therapy device, a sort of like a psychological object that will allow you to confront a particular truth. So this selection of goods don't have to do much with utility and more with the flavor of the setting, more of the role playing aspect. In the sense that, for example, in old school fantasy games, you have all these costs for pipes and different implements that just have to do with the pleasure of your character, and you just buy them to better portray the personality of your of particular character. And you have other things like concert cube, which is basically a cube that recreates a musical concert. You have an eternal flame, used most often for religious purposes. The eternal flame was also a popular element of home decor in certain cultures. So this is basically like a fireplace of sorts, or like a torch. In a way, you could say it's a torch. And so you have a lot of these interesting objects that are more for recreation or practical use, and non-combat use, that is. And you have a lot of new robots. Well, yes, there are quite a bit of robots here. And you have information on robots and how to repair them and refuel them, and how to communicate with robots as you encounter them in your adventures. And you have how they react on when they detect intruders, and how to buy and sell robots. You have information about that as well. And of course, they all have their background information and their AIs. Now let me show you a few of the illustrations. You have an illustration of a gun right here. You have some illustrations about concerning structures. Let me see if I can get that into focus. And of course you have robot illustrations. Now, some of the robots here are quite gruesome. Some are just created to basically butcher human beings. Some others act as protectors. So they have different names that indicate their function, such as the color, the guardian, the fauna, iconomatic, the sovereign, the spider. All of those robots have different functions and abilities that can be used in different according to the mission that you're carrying out. Now, this is the darker part of the PDF. This is the forbidden fruits section, which has to do with Maltech and dark science. This kind of feels like the dark magic or black magic aspect of technology. These are pieces of technology that allow you to perform things beyond imagination, but in a very perhaps unethical and unlawful way. So, for example, you have the things such as genetic slavery or the ghoul immortality. This type of technology allows you to steal organs from other living beings. It's like forcing someone to become a donor, and they have to be alive while you're at it, so it's quite a painful process, probably even deadly. For example, if you're trying to steal a human heart, with this technology you will be able to do that, so it's quite horrible. And you also have time bombs, but not in the sense that you set the time for a bomb to explode, but it's a bomb that affects time. When it's tossed and detonated, it affects an entire area, perhaps freezing time for a certain duration. So these are pieces of technology and equipment that alter reality in extraordinary ways. And at the end of the PDF, you have a random equipment table, or various tables to determine what your characters will find while exploring ruins or entering high-tech fortresses, etc. Well, let me tell you what I think about Relics of the Lost. I think this is a great PDF. If you play Stars Without Number, this is a must-have. The core book of Stars Without Number really comes with a ton of information on how to create spaceships, aliens, vehicles. You have tons and tons of equipment and gear, and Relics of the Lost really surprises me because it really adds to the fun. doesn't feel like something like it's just trying to milk the game. It actually brings a lot of new stuff, enhances a lot of the fun and the mystery of Stars Without Number. And as I was telling you, it's quite easy to use all of these objects and relics in other sci-fi games. I think Metamorphosis Alpha will benefit a lot from Relics of the Lost. And even if you play modern science fiction games, there's a lot of inspiration here for your own objects. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.